us. Remember, new episodes premiere every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. on TV 15 and across other social media platforms.
I'm Jasenia Lassiter, wishing you a wonderful week.
Stay friendly, St. Martin.
Late Night Show. Hope everything is okay. Hope everything is all right. I'm your host, Andrew Dick. Okie dokie, kids, what's happening on the lovely island of St. Martin? We begin with the news of the former member of Parliament, Akeem Arinel, will be going to trial because, and here it is, remember when he was a member of Parliament just before elections, and then the prosecutor office there went and searched his office in Parliament. And then when they searched his office in Parliament, they noticed everything was empty. You don't get it? So they went in his office to search the office, but it was empty. One day you're going to get it. One day you're going to get it. In any case, then they went home by him also, and they did a search by his house, and they noticed it was also empty. So it was like, where does he do work? And some of the investigators was like, work. You know what's rough? So before the election, so in January, he received 300 and something votes. You know, a little bit more than Alston 15. But when it comes to the recent elections, he get like 80 something votes. Like, yo, if that ain't so I'm not vote buying. I never vote buy it in my life. I don't bribe nobody. I don't do nothing. People just love me. From January to August, nigga. So January, they love you. 300 people love you. Clean. No problem. And then in August, they're like, nah, garbage. Not voting for him. 80-something votes. Things that make you go, Anyway, so what happens now is that he's going to be have his day in court. Because I was just about to say he's going to be prosecuted and sent to jail. No, I can't say that because you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Even though in St. Martin, it's the other way around. Ask Theo. Either way, at the end of the day, we have to wait, we got to check, and we have to see what's going to happen with this case. There are 3 other persons that were arrested at the same time while he was held for questioning. Those 3 persons were arrested, and those 3 persons look like they flipped, meaning that they, you know, it's going to tell the prosecutors a story. So it was Akeem. It was Akeem, yeah. But like I said, the hardest thing for you is to prove that you bribed me. Because I have to admit to taking the bribe in the first place. And then I could be looking at jail time. Yeah, it's a twofold thing. And then afterwards, when you go testify somebody, you're going to say, yeah, well, he gave me $10 and told me to vote for him. So I took the $10, but I didn't vote for him. You see, it's hard to prove this whole vote buying thing, but the prosecutor have experience of waiting for people to die after they can't bring them to court for so many years. I forget the first vote buying case, you know. Ridiculous. Anyway, the good gentleman now is out of a job and now is going to be prosecuted by the prosecutor office for vote buying. Some would say, what is the purpose of this case? Because he's not a member of parliament anymore. So what is he really hurting? But you know, the way that the justice here works is that it just creeps up on you. Just creeps up on you. Yeah. All right. Also, I'd like to say happy birthday. Happy birthday greetings going to the GT twins, Nicola and Niola. I hope I get it right. Saw her today, and she was like, "Scat by Andrew. We just watch you all the time." That's my best Guyanese accent. I have no Guyanese accent at all. And then she was like, "Okay, so big up to the twins, Nicola and Niola. Cut the cake, celebrate, and continue watching late night." Yeah. When we come back, we have some more for you. There is something that we need to talk about, and I think it has something to do with Puff Puff Pass. Puff Puff Pass. We'll be right back.
You've dreamt it. You've worked hard for it. And now you've got it. You deserve to enjoy the fruits of your labor and know that you're covered in case of a disaster, like an unexpected fire or a vehicular collision. At Magical Insurances, we focus on settling your claims quickly and fairly so you can get back to enjoying your life. Magical Insurances, fast, fair, and always there.
Nugent. She my gang. Let's get ready for the party. Girl, why you body? Get ready for the party. Girl, why you body? Let's get ready for the party. Girl, why you body? Get ready for the party. Girl, why you body? Where the party tonight? Someone tell me where the party tonight. Where the party tonight? Someone tell me where the party tonight. Where the party tonight? Anytime I see the girl, you want to get with one like a cigarette, bend down like a next. Slap up on your body, girl, shake up your leg, one like a cigarette, bend down like a next. Slap up on your body, girl, shake. Everybody get mad.
At GEBE, we take the safety and quality of your water seriously. Every day, our dedicated sample collectors venture into the field, visiting the places that matter to you: water tanks, school, supermarkets, home, and high-risk areas. Once these samples return to our water quality lab at KB, they embark on a journey that safeguards your well-being. Our dedicated analysts take over, sending these samples to the microbiology and chemistry departments respectively. This is where the magic happens. We test for a range of parameters, and we do this every single day, no matter what, including holidays and weekends. In our microbiology department, we focus on two major tests targeting various bacteria. Confirmation tests are conducted, and we have plans in place in case the results are confirmed. And then we do it all over again, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Rain or shine, your water safety never takes a day off. So when you turn on the tap and enjoy a glass of GEBE's water, you can do so with confidence. GEBE, the power to serve.
Okay, so there's this interesting video about the weed industry. We gonna call it ganja because when you hear weed, everybody like, ooh, corrupting all her kids. And then you just go like, what about politics? Shots today, boy. I just firing shots like I'm hot. I'm hot. Somebody stop me. Check this video out. Pretty cool. Pete, pass the joint to the next video. Yes.
Growing, harvesting, and selling weed legally is really hard in the US. From tracking to packaging, the laws are different in every state.
There's a lot of red tape that just doesn't make sense.
Licenses to start a farm can cost up to $80,000 alone.
The regulations are really part of what layers on those costs.
If marijuana companies can get it right, there's a lot of opportunity for success.
It can become over $100 billion industry. That's like approaching what the beer industry is.
But if a business makes a mistake,
It can quickly slide from paying a fine to severe jail time under drug trafficking laws.
we visited 3 marijuana companies across the US to see why the regulations are so tough to follow and how they're keeping entire communities out of the industry. Marijuana with THC, or the stuff that gets you high, is now fully legal for medical use in 36 states and DC. Of those, 18 in DC have legalized it for recreational use, but it's still illegal on the federal level. So every state has free rein on how to regulate it.
That's probably the most challenging thing about the regulations. There are many of them and they differ state by state.
And it all starts with the business license, the first barrier to the marijuana industry. Will and Adriana wanted to start a farm in California, but there, a license to grow can cost almost $80,000 with an $8,000 application fee. That's a lot more than a liquor license in California, which can cost just over $15,000 max.
So basically anyone who can afford to get a license, they can get one, which makes it very competitive.
The competition for licenses becomes extremely fierce and very expensive.
Some states do things like, in addition to the fee, require you to have liquid capital of $250,000, for example. And who's got $250,000 in liquid capital? Few people. That begins to immediately lock out whole communities.
Will and Adriana couldn't afford California's cultivation license, so they decided to put down roots in Oregon. There, a license and application fee costs between $4,000 and $10,000, and the liquor license, $800. In both states, aspiring cannabis entrepreneurs also have to sign a lease on a property before they can apply for a license.
That is a property that you're paying monthly rent on. It's sitting there empty. You're not making any money, but your license application may not go through.
We waited 2 years for a license.
They got approved in 2020 and started their company Magic Hour Cannabis in Portland.
These are so small.
I know, it's good for me.
Does this look ridiculous?
No.
Nice and fitted.
Yeah, we finally waited these 2 years. We just waited 4 months for our plants to be ready to harvest, and we're basically dwindling with no money. It was very scary. We didn't know if we were going to go under before we even got up.
So Will and Adriana applied for a grant through New Leaf, a nonprofit that helps fund Black and Brown-owned cannabis companies.
Specifically to build intergenerational wealth for the communities most harmed by the war on drugs. Those two things come together, a high capital intensive business and then the lack of personal capital, personal wealth, and it's a hard place to start for a Black founder in cannabis.
We applied for the New Leaf grant and we were able to get $10,000, which honestly for cannabis companies, especially grows, is not that much. It gave us a little more time to sell. We started making sales and gaining momentum.
But the expensive regulations don't just stop at the license. In Oregon, the government requires farms to have seed-to-sale tracking.
This is basically an effort to reduce or at least understand the flow of cannabis into the illicit market.
The state tracks plants using tags with barcodes.
As you can see, all these metric tags here are made out of plastic. You can't reuse them. The tag takes me hours on end, and then you have to physically go and loop them around each plant. They cost around 50 cents a pop, which is really expensive when you have 1,100 plants in your facility.
They go on every plant when they're young.
This is considered a baby room.
And the tags stay with the plants through harvest.
These are even turning purple, so that's one indicator that the plant is quote unquote finishing up.
We just come down here to the very bottom of the plant, chop it off, and then we'll hang this up here. We have to individually weigh every single plant according to the tag number that we got. I'll read them the tag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 1 05579. Weigh this 183 grams, and then go on to the next one. It's a pretty tedious process, but for regulations, we have to do it.
So we weigh it wet, we weigh it dry, and then we weigh the waste from each plant and enter that in, making sure that every single part of the plant is accounted for. It's a pound of that gelato, baby.
And then there's a whole other set of regulations for turning marijuana into edibles. Based in Denver, Wana Brands is one of the top THC gummy makers in the country. It launched 2 years before Colorado legalized recreational marijuana.
I like to say it was kind of the Wild West in Colorado back in 2010. There really were not a lot of regulations in place.
That's founder Nancy Whiteman. She's expanded Wana into 11 different states. But remember, cannabis is federally illegal, so it cannot cross state lines.
Which essentially really removes our ability to scale.
So in every state it enters, Wana has to partner with licensed growers and manufacturers. Those partners grow and make the product locally, using Wana's recipes and brand name. Then the companies share the revenue.
The issue with that is they don't have as much control over the supply chain as they might like. If, say, their grower in California is less high quality than the grower in Colorado, what does that do to the brand? It's sort of very hard to control that.
In each new state it enters, Wana also has to follow different manufacturing and packaging laws. For one, the THC symbols stamped on the gummies come in all forms.
In Colorado and several of our other states has the pictures of fruit on it. Certain states have decided that looks too tempting for children, so you can't have fruit. So you can use color, but you can't use fruit.
Different states will have different dosage requirements. In Oregon, 1 dose is 5 milligrams. In other states, 1 dose could be 10 milligrams.
When you start having these variations in every single market, that's where it becomes extremely costly.
Those regulations follow all the way to the last step, delivery.
Hey, thanks so much. You have a good one.
When Adrian Wayman moved to Portland in 2016, he had to fight hard for his company to even exist.
There was no type of license for delivery-only retailers. I immediately started going to all of the public hearings for the rulemaking, basically to plead my case and let them know, like, hey, I love that delivery is an option, but these proposed rules, no one can run an efficient business. So let's remove this, get rid of this, and luckily they decided in my favor.
Because of Adrian's lobbying, Portland passed a law allowing cannabis delivery in 2016. Adrian then opened Greenbox, a delivery and subscription service.
I've been selling weed since high school. Got arrested for it, was on probation, did the whole 9. When I was getting fingerprinted for my license, it was just really weird because I was like, man, the last time I got fingerprinted, I was going to jail for selling pot, selling weed. And now I'm getting fingerprinted to get a license to sell it legally.
When Adrian first started delivering, only $100 worth of cannabis was allowed in the car at one time.
Our average order is over $100, so that just wouldn't make any sense.
Adrian again lobbied and got the limit raised to $3,000.
I don't like being told no. I hate restrictions. So I got an order pulled up on my phone, and this is basically a box of pre-rolls. This one is going to Northeast Portland. Here's my manifest for the state tracking. That whole drawer is just all manifest, just from deliveries. I have to keep them for 3 years.
Each of those manifests lists out exact turn-by-turn directions that Adrian has to follow on a delivery. That's because regulators want to make sure no marijuana products go out the back door.
That's just not practical. When I'm building my manifest, Google Maps may tell me the quickest time at that point, but an accident may happen and I may have to detour. And if I do not follow those directions, I have to go back and update my route. I do understand that it needs to be regulated and tracked, but I do think some things are just a little ridiculous or just not practical.
But those tough regulations can't be ignored.
They come about twice a year to check in. They will pop up and knock on your door, and it's the scariest thing ever. It's just very stressful.
If compliance officers find that rules aren't being followed, a lot of bad stuff can happen.
At the least severe, you're probably going to get a reprimand and perhaps a fine.
Remember, it is cannabis, it is illegal. So if you are caught growing a supply of unlicensed cannabis, then you're talking about a felony, and then you're talking about jail time. And so that's a delicate dance to try and make sure that they're staying on side of regulations. No matter how rapidly they're changing, they're risking themselves personally and financially.
All these unavoidable regulations make starting a weed business really expensive. Forbes reported startup costs could be as high as $1 million for a dispensary. And raising that kind of capital can be hard.
We can't traditionally go and just get a small business loan
because of it being a federally illegal substance. So banks won't loan for that reason.
They can't take credit cards because it's federally illegal. They're doing business mostly all in cash.
So you really got to get your business funded from your personal wealth or from your network wealth.
Those situations begin to favor people who've traditionally had good access to capital.
And oftentimes that correlates with being white.
It is very white, male dominant, and there's no reason that is what it should be.
Only 2% of cannabis entrepreneurs are Black. Yet Black Americans were most affected by marijuana's illegal status in the past.
There is kind of a clear through line from the war on drugs. According to the ACLU, Black people are 4 times as likely than whites to get arrested for cannabis use, despite using at very similar rates across age groups, across different states.
Those in favor of federal legalization believe it could close the capital gap and ease regulations.
With full-scale federal legalization, there would be loans available for minority entrepreneurs. So if you're a minority entrepreneur and you aren't connected to these wealthy private investors, you can actually get a loan on pretty favorable terms from a bank.
In July 2020, Senator Chuck Schumer proposed legislation that would legalize marijuana federally. Jeremy says at the core of that legislation is equity.
To give the economic benefits of legalization to people who generally have not received those benefits in the past, i.e. minority entrepreneurs, Black and brown people.
That would include
a certain percentage of the licenses for those people specifically.
Expungement of cannabis crimes. Cannabis taxes must go into reparative justice for Black, Indigenous, and Latinx communities.
The bill would also mean the FDA would standardize regulations in every state.
That could be as simple as the labeling or as complicated as how much THC is allowed per unit.
Please, God, give us a universal THC symbol so we don't have to have that across every single state.
Marijuana could also then cross state lines.
If we were able to export, our sales would definitely open up even more.
One thing that I really wish would be allowed is inventory in our vehicle. Something like our hottest items in the trunk, in the safe, ready to go.
But Jeremy doesn't think federal legalization will pass within the year. There's been pushback on the bill.
A lot of people are really unable to divorce themselves from the stigma that drugs are bad, cannabis is a drug, so why are we saying it's okay? Number one is simply highway safety.
There's no such thing as a cannabis breathalyzer yet.
A lot of police unions are really worried about what it's like when people drive high. There's no standard to say, like, okay, you're high after you've had 2 puffs. Everybody has a different tolerance. THC binds to your fat cells, a blood test after the fact. It might tell you smoked last week. Another key hurdle is around teen use. There is a lot of troubling research that cannabis does really impact the development of adolescent brains in terms of developing mental conditions like anxiety, depression, even suicidal ideation.
But studies in states with legalized marijuana show teen use is actually down.
Because it's just not really cool anymore, right? Like their mom is buying it. 93% of Americans polled say at least medical marijuana should be legal. So with any hot button issue with that much public support, it's only a matter of time. I think there will be a lot of push and pull that will likely take us probably through the end of Biden's term, if I had to kind of put a timeline on it.
So until then, these entrepreneurs will keep working within the complicated regulation system, hoping to stay afloat in the growing big business of legal weed.
That video got me high off of my expectations. I should be a comedian. All right. Now, the Parliament of St. Martin met today in a public meeting to discuss ENYA. It was long, was drawn out, but hey, I gotta show you the highlights. Take a look. Yippee!
Madam Chair Lady, I have a couple questions and, a couple comments because, like I said, I am extremely disappointed in how this whole thing is going, and I must agree with MP Weaver with how this was brought to us and how we are dealing with it today. I must commend somewhat the Minister of Finance for individually reaching out, I don't know about the rest, but to my person and explaining things or, giving some line to it. I must commend her for that, but I am still very much perplexed, and that is frustrating. Madam Chair Lady, in the last few weeks, I've understood and I've come to get the feeling that something went wrong when it comes to tying the COVID loan with the Enya saga. But Madam Chair Lady, the feeling came across as if it was, and we could be clear about it, that the previous Minister of Finance was the one that put us in this situation, okay? And then I have a question, because Article 101 from the Constitution states that Parliament must approve any borrowing that will be done by government. So the first agreement was signed by COM, but also approved in Parliament. And if that is not the case, I would like someone to explain me that. Because we signed on to the COVID loans, and if we signed on to the COVID loans, were the COVID loans agreed by Parliament? That is my question.
MP Lacruz, we have an interruption from MP Gums. MP Gums?
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. And good afternoon to everyone. But just for the MP to clarify, the overall agreement has not been approved by Parliament for Enya. In fact, we had, as you mentioned in your guidelines, that lead up to it, that meeting concluded in April, where we were told that the then minister would need 2 weeks to come back, but then, of course, a new government swore in not too long after. So that overlap was there, hence why we're here today with this addendum to that, hopefully in a court. And all of that is the package that we're now deliberating to be signed today. So just for the Enya thing, that was not approved by Parliament. It was approved by COM and then it was supposed to come here, but ultimately we also had an election in January, so it did not get here on time.
Thank you, MP Gums. MP Lacruz, you may continue.
So what was agreed then in Article 7, Sub 3, that was elucidated? This is the lane over the income self-financing COVID laning. This was literally part of it. 3.7, Article 7, 3. It's there. That's one. So I'd like some clarification on that, please, Minister. Then, during the Hurricane Irma, I was part owner of a business that actually took a very hard hit because the then government or minister decided to place a dump in front of my business. Okay, we continued paying employees and debts and rent. Now, this is something that it was a business that we could have opened up right away because we had minimal damage 1 week, 2 weeks after. But because of the dump, that could not happen. A choice that was made by the then government to pick up the garbage from Simpson Bay and drop it on that location, to pick it up again, to then drop it to what we call now the second dump, right? I don't see why, or maybe it's possible that I could have said, hey, you know what, 10 people lost there, and we're going to ask the government now to pay for, or the rest of the population to pay for this mistake that was made by others, okay? So now we're asking the population to pay and put in to cover $3,000. What is in it for the others, okay? And that is why I emphasize multiple times that any agreement that does not have Mullet Bay And when I'm speaking of Mullet Bay, the option that is on the table right now makes absolutely no sense to me. The minister before me elucidated somewhat about it with the way it would be on a bid. Makes absolutely no sense. I will not, and I don't understand why we have not moved in a direction to go into an irrevocable purchase agreement for Mullet Bay.
Madam Chair, Lady, through you, I share the sentiments of certain MPs that have spoken before me. The MP La Cruz stated, why are the other population, the rest of the population being penalized for just these 3,000? I understand the connection. I don't agree with the way things are going right now, but I understand the connection. Because these 3,000 are they're not just a number. They're pensioners. You see, pension is something that the AOV, people think you're supposed to live off of. But in reality, it's not. You're always supposed to have something extra to pay in order for you to live off. That's what pension is. And persons at the time invested their money in India to have that extra finance that they don't have to burden government, burden their family, and burden other individuals for them to live comfortable. It's unfortunate what has happened today. It's really unfortunate the situation that we're in today. But if we don't find a solution as government, as parliamentarians, as ministers, these 3,000 are going to end up at our doorstep. These 3,000 are going to end up at our doorstep at VSA asking for social welfare. It was stated already that this country can't afford this extra burden. They can't afford it by supporting India. They can't afford it by allowing these 3,000 to come. So at the end of the day, it is a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword. The speaker before me, MP Ludmila de Wever, spoke about not having comfort in the persons that dropped the ball. We are putting back the trust in them again. The previous minister, I'll go back to this, but the previous minister, we always say, no, previous speaker before me said, why are we involving ourselves in a private company? It means that later on, other companies are going to come and ask for government to do a bailout. But government intervening in companies is not something new. It has been done before in the past. It's been done with financial institutions such as ABN AMRO, ING, KLM, and some of them were successful. But in my research, I realized that there are also some unsuccessful stories. Hero Bank. Government intervened then. It helped for a little while, but after a while, the company, the bank, filed for bankruptcy. That is where my colleague MP Ludmila de Wever is coming from. What assurance do we have that what is presented to us today will be successful? We're going to hope, we're going to pray that it's going to be something positive, because that's all we can do right now. To be honest with you, that's all we can do right now. But we have to do something for those individuals that are policyholders. We dropped the ball because the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin, hear the name, Curaçao and St. Martin, we are also responsible. That's where the connection is. That's where the connection is, Madam Chair Lady. I am going to ask, through you, Madam Chair Lady, that in the future, in the near future, let's see how we can hold that institution accountable. Let's see what can we put in place, because look, mistakes were made, people are suffering, and it's our responsibility as government, be it legislative or executive branch, it's our responsibility to look into the matter and start to see how we can prevent this from ever happening again. We have to hold those responsible accountable. We have to make sure protect the victims, those policyholders. We have to make sure protect them, because at the end of the day, we are here to represent not just those that weren't not just the 3,000, but all of the population.
Time for a commercial break. When we come back, more late night.
Hello and welcome to SXM Taxi, the most convenient way to hail a taxi on St. Martin. Our app is strictly dedicated to licensed taxi drivers only on the island of St. Martin. You must have an active authorized taxi license and driver's license to be approved to use our service. Our app is designed for the convenience of both customers and drivers. Customers simply download the app, upload a credit card, and have immediate access to any driver available nearby. Once you sign up and are approved to drive, you can choose when you want to use the app by toggling the switch at the top center of your screen to either online or offline. When you are online, you will be alerted for passenger pickups in your area, be visible to riders, and be able to accept rides. When you are offline, you will not receive alerts and you will be invisible to riders. This feature is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to use at your discretion, making the app extremely flexible and user-friendly for the driver. Once the rider requests a taxi, a notification is sent to all drivers in the vicinity. The first available driver to accept the ride gets the fare. Once you are alerted of a potential fare, you can accept the trip by clicking the Accept button at the bottom of your screen. The app's built-in GPS feature will then guide you directly to the rider's location. By clicking the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you can choose from 3 different GPS integrations: Apple Maps, Google Maps, or Waze. This feature gives you the ability to use the GPS platform you are most comfortable with. Please keep in mind that you must download the GPS app that you prefer separately onto your phone in order to use this feature. We recommend downloading the Waze GPS app for best results, as we find it to be the most accurate and up-to-date GPS platform. Once you arrive at your passenger pickup point, slide the Mark Arrived arrow at the bottom of your screen. For added security, the app will require you to enter either the last 4 digits of the passenger's phone number or an OTP code that was provided to the rider. This built-in safety feature protects drivers from unwanted or incorrect passengers. Once you enter the correct code, the ride can start by swiping the slide to begin arrow on the bottom of your screen. Once the trip is complete, simply swipe the slide to end ride arrow on the bottom of your screen. The fare is automatically calculated and charged to the rider's credit card. You are now ready and available for your next ride. Driver sign-up bonus fees. All drivers that sign up to use our service will receive an additional 10% booking fee for every fare booked with the app through 2025. In addition, the first 100 drivers that use our service and reach their 100th ride milestone with SXM Taxi will receive a one-time $500 bonus fee.
signed up for Flex by Telem.
Do you mean flex like this?
Definitely not that.
Do you mean flex like this?
No, definitely not that.
Do you mean flex like this?
No, definitely not Flex like that. Telem's Flex is a mobile plan that adapts to your needs. Each month, I get a preset monthly fee that has a set amount of data, SMS, and minutes, so I know what I'm getting. But say goodbye to overages and bill shock, because when I go over my postpaid plan, it switches to prepaid, so I have the flexibility to top up what I need when I need it. I'm in complete control. My budget, my rules.
Hello, my people. Make sure you tune in to Sit, Sip, and Chat every Monday at 5 p.m. on TV 15 and every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m.
And make sure tune in to the Late Night Show with Andrew Dick from Monday to Friday at 10 p.m. with a repeat in the afternoon for no reason. In the afternoon, the Late Night Show at 3 p.m. Thank you, TV 15.
Thank you, TV 15. Make sure to tune in
Make sure to tune in to the Late Night.
and Sit, Sip, and Chat.
Late Night. Continue this area business. Members of Parliament discussed, talked, and continue to bitch.
I want to go over the fact that from day one, when this was presented to us, I had questions from the perspective of my experience of dealing with policyholders of pension and in regards of calculating the future, or how do you say, like the obligations, right, that an entity would have when they needed to pay out. And from day one, it's the, how do you say, the hesitation that I've had with this agreement because of the fact that when I asked the first time around, you know, how are we making up this number? I was constantly hearing 3,000 plus. I was never getting an exact number of policyholders. And then when I got an article lately, it specifically said 3,084. So that first sort of hesitation I had with it was a little bit calmed a little bit, or I got a little bit more comfort from it. But then I went back again to the fact that, you know, when I'm in my former capacity as an external auditor, I look at numbers and I have to make sure that the numbers are reflecting real human beings. There's a way that I test it. I will have a list of policyholders, which is the work an actuarian would do. I would have a list of policyholders that would have their, you know, contribution or their salary attached to it, and then I would be able to say, does this exist for an actual human being? And up to today, I never really got that list. And even though we got a projection of sort of outflows that we could review when we had the technical team in, it was just, for me, for my purposes of understanding financial figures, it has been very, very difficult for me to do so. And when I move on to the fact that, you know, I'm looking at facts. I'm looking at facts that I have received from day one of this agreement coming up, of us having to bail out a company that, from the first discussion, I said that, you know, we find ourselves here in the position of bailing out a company where I feel like there was such major collusion that happened that I'm trying to now see, moving forward a year later, if I can get any more comfort from the collusion that happened back then. And then you look at the players. You look at the players involved from the pension provider. You look at the players involved from the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin. And then you look at the players involved in the sense of the policyholders who we're trying to give some sort of comfort to, that their pensions are protected coming, you know, going forward for the remainder of that, of the time that it's going to become due. And I have struggled coming into this meeting this morning. I have very, very rarely ever found myself frustrated and in a position where I don't know enough. So I go back to the fact that when we had when this meeting ended, when we adjourned this meeting to gather more information, I will go over the items that I took notes on that require for me a little bit more explanation. And one of my colleagues asked the question of when was the last payment that we got from Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin, and we were told that it was 2019. And my notes on that was that I can't trust the entity that let that happen once again. And I go back to the fact that this is not something about what the current Minister of Finance finds herself dealing with or inheriting, but the comfort that I'm looking for is if the last payment that we received from the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin is in 2019, and I got nothing in 2020, and I got nothing in 2021, and in 2022, I got a small payout of 1.3 million, which isn't even the amount that we're supposed to be contributing towards it. My question regarding this is to understand, like, what more comfort can I get from something like this? Because everything that I have written down sounds like hope, like wishing and hoping that things will go the right way, especially when I feel, just like the minister told us last week or the last time that the minister was here in this public meeting, was that what we experienced was unjust by the central bank. So the comfort that I am requesting is, where is the hope that I need that the entity that has spearheaded this proposal is going to take some sort of responsibility as well, especially as we move forward in the future. And just like you see where most banks or financial institutions will have insurance for these kind of cases, what do we have in place when this happens? Do we have something like the FDIC in the US, where when people are putting money into their bank accounts, this is the depositors, not the owners, the person that have deposits somewhere? Is there some insurance that the bank is now gonna help us implement, or say the right way of going about it? Because it just seems that, I remember my colleague MP Melissa Gums next to me talked about the institutions. She specifically called out the institutions that have failed under the watch of Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin. And here we have two countries, Curaçao and St. Martin, having to clean up the regulators' mess. And we're now putting our, again, as MP Gums just reminded me. And then, here I'm making the difficulty that I have is that I have to make a decision that has a 30-year impact on the people of this country for policyholders that not only already paid in to their future obligations that they're expecting to get when they are retired, but now we have to go in and save those policyholders who already paid it and pay in again, because the person that's still involved in this whole agreement is still there. And this is the struggle that I'm having with it. Not even to talk about the fact that, unfairly, once again, our country is being forced to make a decision that has a deadline on it within 3 days, that is becoming due, that is attached to interest expenses, that if we don't do this, they're going to attach it to higher interest of the loans that we had that we needed when COVID was in a bad time. So it's like the worst case of a catch-22, that it doesn't matter which way I go, I feel, for lack of a better word, screwed over. And it's not a curse word, so I think I'm allowed to say that respectfully. But it's like a screwdriver. That's why I think I'm allowed to say it, right? But this is the struggle that I have, is that I am supposed to be able to understand the information that comes from a minister when they are coming to this floor and seeking support. And right now, I feel stuck at the fact that, again, the person spearheading this is the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin, and I don't even know how to move forward from that one fact. That right now, I will ask again the minister, through you, Madam Chair Lady, that, who's to say that
everything that's happening here isn't really going to be to make everything whole, to make the existing companies or the new companies that are going to form through this agreement, that through the approval of this agreement, that, you know, once everything is kosher and copacetic and everything is good again, and no one has any concerns of the future payouts, that it's not just going to go back to business as usual with the main player doing exactly what they did before, which is neglect their one task, their primary task of being a regulator of financial entities. How much time do I have left? A minute? I know I don't have enough time. I honestly really don't have enough time. I will say this. All I did was I wrote to every comment I had, hope, 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 hope. So I'm hoping that when the Minister of Finance is able to come back here and give us a little bit last push of why this is the ultimate best option we have after the Minister has put in the addendum in it, where she explicitly told us that 37 million was saved, contrary to the first time it was presented. And what I wanted to say to end off here today is, if 37 million was saved by a proposal spearheaded by the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin, how do I not know that there's more to save? And we're getting the best outcome we possibly can get from this. Thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP De Wever. The next speaker is MP Irian. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Good afternoon again, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the Minister, her support staff. Good afternoon to the members of Parliament. Good afternoon to the viewing public. Madam Chair, I had the opportunity to listen to the Honorable Minister's interview this morning, and it was very, I would say, insightful, but also very less ironic that hearing certain words. Because when I listened again to the meeting in June when the Minister was here, it's a stark contrast, actually a 180 to what was said in June. The interview today sounds a lot like when I was presenting the HLA in Parliament. Madam Chair, if I go back to, and I believe also, Madam Chair, that it shows the difference between an election period and the election reality, Madam Chair. Because as you mentioned, and Chief Madam Chair and MP Westcott mentioned, you guys highlighted things that the Minister said. I don't know which meeting that was. I have the meeting down to the T, but when I look at the meeting, I know for sure what the Minister said to me in June, to us, the members of Parliament, that the Minister cannot, in her good conscience, advise the Parliament to go ahead with this agreement. That's what the Minister said. And she said also that the 4 million guilders we'll be getting from the Central Bank could be going to justice and education, among others, Madam Chair. The Minister said that she would bring she would be getting money back to us because it's important. The Minister also said since then we would have the first rights of a refusal. Madam Chair, you can scan through the document. This addendum today does not have anything with Mullaby inside of it, Madam Chair. Anything. So when I hear, again, the comments that were made pre-election, you emotionally worked up the public about these opportunities, but as MP De Wever said, she was looking for hope. But based on the answers today, that hope was taken away, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, when we look at, I even decided to maybe look at the definition of savings. If you look at the addendum and you look at the original Helen agreement, the distribution key is the same. That means what we were contributing in the Helen agreement is exactly what we're contributing now in the addendum. Nothing has changed. Nothing. So the exact amount that we're contributing is the same. So let's say, for example, we were contributing 2 million guilders. We're not contributing 1 million guilders now in the addendum. So what are we saving? Is a difference, Madam Chair, between savings and projections. Yes, in the peak facility, that the Minister said she took us out of that, but it doesn't mean we're going to use a peak facility. I'm not God, you're not God. So there's also opportunity that we never use a peak facility. It also means there's a potential that we use a peak facility more than 2 times. But at the end of the day, it's not a savings. A savings means right now, in this moment, every year, right? We have a reduction in the amount we have to contribute. The distribution key, Madam Chair, is exactly the same. That has not changed. So we are not saving. In addition to that, I asked the minister about the contribution of Suriname and the Best Islands. Suriname, Madam Chair, in the footnote of the addendum of the minister states that the Suriname individuals, the Suriname policyholders, will be seen as persons that lived in Curaçao, and that Curaçao will take them up. It's in her own addendum, not mine. It's a footnote. In addition to that, in the original HLA, the Best Islands were already covered by the Dutch Central Bank. In the Waarborg sum, they already were covered. And then the question came up, yes, but it was said in a technical meeting, yes, but we're making it clearer. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. Making it clear doesn't mean it wasn't there. So that means, Madam Chair, there's no savings there either. There's no savings because it was never a concern for us because the Dutch Central Bank took it up. And that's not only my opinion. I also went to verify that point. Madam Chair, I would like to confirm via you, through the minister, wasn't there already security for the Best Islands through the Waarborg sum? And the point of saying the Dutch Central Bank, and the point of saying we're making it clearer, of course it can't be clearer. The agreement isn't signed off, so we can't continue the process. Madam Chair, when I look at the hype, and I'm not going to lie, I was even excited to see Molly potentially in the addendum. If you look back at the presentation, Madam Chair, and the whole of Parliament was excited for that, yes, we take him at Molly Bay. And this addendum has nothing to do with Molly Bay. There's no first rights of refusal inside this addendum, none. So what we approve today has nothing to do with Molly Bay. But again, you work the Parliament up about it, the people of St. Martin about it, and that opportunity is not there. Matter of fact, in the technical team, it was told to us, Molly Bay is not ours. Molly Bay is not ours. When we look at I also asked the minister, how much are we contributing to Suriname in the best? She said, we can't break it down. We can't separate it. From my understanding, when I was there, we were the HLA, we were contributing 30,000 guilders or less to Suriname. That's a far, far cry from 37 million guilders, Madam Chair. And that's information that I have, that information that they should have also, Madam Chair. Again, I want to focus on the fact that we are contributing the exact same amount. There is no savings. These are projections. And also in the calculations brought forward by the minister, they use top-line projections. You could also use bottom-line projections. You don't have to use top-line projections. And even in the last meeting, it was said we would have a sort of a matching the rights of a bid for Mother Bay. Even that is bad, Madam Chair, because as my fellow MP La Cruz mentioned, going over to having individuals, maybe Ansari himself, overbidding for Mother Bay, and then having us pay for it is a far, far cry from actually being able to own Mother Bay. And again, do we have the money to do that? Yes, I said it before, yes. Currently, we already have an opportunity to buy Mother Bay. But where's the plan to purchase Mother Bay? There's none. As I mentioned before, it was just an emotional hijacking before election because there's no plan to execute this. And again, it's a shame because the people of St. Martin will be disappointed when they come to that realization. I'd like to ask, Madam Chair, will the distribution key change now that St. Martin is no longer paying for the best according to the minister? So will the distribution key change, Madam Chair? So that means if it doesn't change by us not contributing to the best in Suriname, then we're paying the same amount. Nothing has changed. What will happen if St. Martin is unable to send funds and still needs to use the peak facility, and how does this impact the budget? What does the separation of the administration between St. Martin and Curaçao mean for setup costs? Because saying that we only going to focus on administration now means we just don't do bookkeeping. I'm pretty sure we're not saving millions of guilders doing bookkeeping. I'm 100% sure we're not saving millions of guilders doing bookkeeping. Madam Chair, when I look at the total amount, the 500 million guilders, and the minister said that, and you take the 6.49%, it's 30 million guilders. So even if we separate it, no matter how you play around with the numbers, Madam Chair, our contribution remains the same. It's just projections. It's not savings because, and I'd like to ask the minister, through you, Madam Chair, if we don't use the PIC facility, if the Dutch Central Bank covers the best islands, what savings are we getting on a yearly basis? So within our HLA before and the current addendum, what savings are we getting without projections, Madam Chair? What savings are we getting without projections? Madam Chair, you said I have how much time?
36 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I look at where we are today and the comments that were made to Parliament 2 months ago, and now I see that the addendum doesn't bring anything else different in terms of what we had before, but what it does bring is more confusion, and it shows that we played politics 6 weeks ago, but not today. We have a reality before us, because then we had the looming 6% above us also, and now it's the same argument now, Madam Chair. Thank you.
That is for the late show. Thank you so much for watching. Until tomorrow, do have a safe and pleasant one. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and follow, and all of that good stuff. Bye-bye.